The ball drops over his shoulder. The clock is dead. England are seconds from elimination. And then, Jude Bellingham hangs in the air and scissors an overhead kick into the net. The cameras catch him sprinting to the corner flag, arms spread wide, roaring into the void. How does a 21-year-old learn to bend the biggest moments to his will? And where did that certainty begin? To understand the player, you have to go back to a quiet corner of the English Midlands. Jude Victor William Bellingham was born on the 29th of June 2003 in Stourbridge, a market town near Birmingham, England. His father, Mark, was a non-league striker and a serving police officer. His mother, Denise, kept the family grounded. From the start, structure and discipline framed everything Jude did. He joined Birmingham City's academy at just 8 years old. Coaches there have spoken of a boy who trained like a professional before he was even a teenager. He played up age groups, bullied bigger boys off the ball, and carried himself with a maturity that unsettled grown men. One academy coach put it simply: he had the body of a kid and the brain of a 25-year-old. Then, in the summer of 2019, the brain caught up with the stage. On the 6th of August 2019, Jude Bellingham stepped onto the pitch for Birmingham's first team. He was 16 years and 38 days old, the youngest first-team player in Birmingham City's entire history. Weeks later, he became their youngest ever goalscorer too, slotting home against Stoke City with the calm of a veteran. He didn't look like a kid having a moment. He looked like a midfielder who belonged, driving through the middle, winning the ball, demanding it back. By the end of that season, he'd made 44 appearances for Birmingham, all as a 16-year-old in England's brutal second tier. And Europe's biggest clubs had noticed. The whispers became a stampede. In July 2020, he made the decision that would define his trajectory. He reportedly turned down Manchester United, who flew him to their training ground. Instead, he chose the club famous for trusting young talent, Borussia Dortmund. The fee was around £25 million, making him the most expensive 17-year-old in football history at the time. And then Birmingham did something almost unheard of. They retired his number 22 shirt for a 17-year-old who had played one season. A statement that they had seen something generational. In Germany, the boy from Stourbridge became a man. He scored on his debut in the German Cup and settled into the Bundesliga as if he'd been there for years. He pressed like a hound, broke lines with his carrying, and tackled like a defender. The complete midfielder was taking shape in yellow and black. Against Manchester City in the Champions League, he produced a man-of-the-match display at 17, even having a goal controversially disallowed. The numbers grew season on season. The captain's armband followed. At 19, he was leading one of Europe's biggest clubs. In his final Dortmund campaign, he was named Bundesliga Player of the Season, the first English player ever to win the award. And in the summer of 2023, the inevitable arrived. Real Madrid came calling, and Real Madrid rarely miss. The deal was worth over £100 million, rising with add-ons. At 19, Jude Bellingham was a galactico. The question hung over the Bernabeu: was this a midfielder or something else? Carlo Ancelotti pushed him higher up the pitch and unleashed something nobody expected. He scored on his La Liga debut. Then he scored again, and again, and again. In his first Clásico at the Bernabeu, he scored twice, including a stoppage-time winner against Barcelona that sent the stadium into delirium. And the Bernabeu found its song. To the tune of the Beatles' classic, 90,000 voices sang "Hey Jude" for a 20-year-old Englishman. He scored 19 La Liga goals in that debut season, astonishing for any midfielder, let alone one in a new country. But it was never just goals. It was the presence, the way he organised, drove, and demanded more from those around him. That season, he won La Liga in his first attempt. And then the biggest prize of all, the Champions League, as Madrid beat Borussia Dortmund, his old club, in the final at Wembley. He was named La Liga Player of the Season and finished third in the world for the Ballon d'Or. Carlo Ancelotti said it plainly. He had the personality of a player who'd been at Madrid for 10 years. But there has always been another shirt that matters just as much. He had become one of England's youngest ever senior debutants while still a teenager, fast-tracked into a golden generation. At Euro 2020, he became the youngest player ever to feature in a European Championship final, though England fell to Italy on penalties at Wembley. At the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, he announced himself on the global stage, heading home against Iran in England's opener, running the midfield with total command. And then came Euro 2024 in Germany, and the moment that opened this story. England trailing, the 95th minute ticking away, and Bellingham produced that overhead kick to rescue them from the brink. It was the goal of a player who simply refuses to accept defeat, the kind of moment that becomes folklore. But the tournament ended in heartbreak. England reached the final and lost to Spain. A second European final, a second runners-up medal. For all his brilliance, the international fairy tale still had no ending. The hunger only grew. Then, in 2025, his body finally asked a question of him. A persistent shoulder problem, one he'd played through for months, required surgery. For the first time, the relentless engine had to stop. Months of rehabilitation followed. For a player who'd never known a real setback, it was a test of patience, not just physio. And the way he answered told you everything. On his return, he scored a Champions League winner, straight back to the biggest moments, as if he'd never been away. No easing in, no rust, just a leader picking up exactly where he left off. Which brings us to the stage he was perhaps always destined for, the 2026 World Cup. England carrying the weight of decades, and a midfielder now in his prime. In England's opener against Croatia, he did what he has always done. He scored. The big stage, the big moment, the same answer. You sense the whole story has been building to this. The boy who carried expectations since the age of 8, now chasing the one trophy that has eluded England for generations. So what exactly is Jude Bellingham? He is the rarest kind of footballer, one who defends, creates, and scores in equal measure. Box to box, both penalty areas, 90 minutes of total involvement. He wins the ball back like a destroyer, then arrives in the box like a striker. There is no obvious comparison. He built his own template. But ask anyone who has played with him, and they talk about something beyond the football. The leadership, the certainty, the refusal to hide. The English press have called him the most complete young midfielder the country has ever produced. A born leader who has never shrunk from a stage. And it all traces back to a retired number 22 hanging at Birmingham City, a club so sure of him they immortalised a 17-year-old. From Stourbridge to the Bernabeu singing his name to the World Cup stage, he has carried expectation that would crush most and turned it into fuel. The runners-up medals, the surgery, the weight of a nation, they haven't dimmed him. If anything, they've sharpened the edge. Because the truly great ones aren't defined by the moments that go their way, they're defined by how they answer the ones that don't. And Jude Bellingham, it seems, is only just getting started. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Beyond the Boots for more. The boots tell the story, we just follow the footsteps.